Welcome back, everyone, to the Integration Hub. Q1 is wrapping up, and the Orderful team has enjoyed meeting all of our customers and prospects out on the road. And we actually had a really great time recently at Manifest, where our team was able to actually sit down and have hard technology discussions with our partners face to face. And today we're actually going to start our Manifest series, sharing those conversations with you. So where do we start? Because we've got a good amount of conversations for the next couple of months to dive into. And I think, well, let's start with EDI. Who would have thought? Of course. Now, the freight industry runs on EDI. And for decades, getting that data to move fast between partners has been a real pain point. At Manifest, our CEO and founder, Erik Kiser, sat down with a longtime customer of ours at Flock Freight, Chris Pickett, the chief commercial officer there. Chris, as well, is known for his market analysts that he puts out quite frequently, too. And that's my favorite part of this conversation. We'll get to actually see these two get into a real freight discussion on why the market is starting to heat back up. We love to hear that. Why EDI isn't going away anytime soon, because we all hear that argument, and we'll explain why it's not. You'll hear that over the next couple weeks as well. We'll also dive into actually what's happening in AI in logistics and what's going beyond the hype. Now, let's get into it.
Chris, good to see you.
See ya.
Chief Commercial Officer at Flock Freight.
That is I.
Pretty impressive. Amazing company. You guys have grown quite a bit over the years. You've been an amazing customer to Orderful. We're super grateful for that. You know, early days, like you guys have been a customer for 3.5, 4 years almost?
We were definitely an early adopter.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's growing a platform like the one Flock is building in an inherently fragmented marketplace like U.S. freight transportation.
Yes.
Like how quickly you can integrate with trading partners, how nimbly you can adjust those integrations when things change, kind of mappings change. I think it's been a huge part of the success Flock's had up to this point, and we think it's going to be a huge enabler as we continue to scale the platform.
Yeah, that's great. We are, the thing I'm most proud of as CEO of Flock, kind of creating this thing is that the product actually works, right? Like, I think so many people have been tainted by EDI. EDI has been such a challenging problem to solve. The growth, the success, all that stuff is fine. Like what I really care about is the product working. So it's really good to hear about. That's awesome.
I think it's interesting as the technology landscape has evolved. I think for a long time, I was at a startup, 20 years ago where the mission was to kill EDI and replace with XML where it's inherently more flexible. And I think getting shippers to move off of that, embedded model where there wasn't a huge incentive to do so has proven pretty ineffective. And so I think you develop these enabling technology where maybe the EDI is not the issue, it's how quickly can you drive that mapping where meet shippers and carriers kind of where they are, but still be able to move quickly, still be able to adapt.
I face that same quote, like we try to kill EDI, I face that same quote about every 3 years when I go to fundraise. Investors are like, hey, why is this not solved yet? Is EDI going to go away? Like, I've been answering the same questions for 8 years.
Now, as we jump into this, Chris has actually spent 15 years scaling freight businesses and dealing with the realities of EDI in the real world. And we asked him why, despite being the industry's biggest frustration and it being brought up on multiple panels, why EDI just won't die. And we'll actually ask him what actually makes integrations fast or slow in practice as well.
EDI is, I think it's just so ingrained in supply chain and logistics, and retail, and healthcare, that it'd be nearly impossible for the market to replace.
But I think that said, I think there definitely is a space in the market, and you guys are proving it, to create more velocity around these integrations. Or I think part, at least my experience, why EDI gets a bad rap, because it's inherently slow. You have teams that are running these integrations on both sides. They tend to be offshore in many cases. It tends to be a long queue in terms of how to prioritize the integrations that we're waiting for. So anything that we can bring to market that helps shippers, helps carriers, helps brokers move faster, but still use that underlying EDI pipe, seems to be like a no-brainer.
Yeah, our whole value prop is speed, right? Like it's speed of transaction, it's speed of onboarding, it's speed of solving production issues, right? It's not just, it's not just like we're not in business just to make money. We're here to actually solve the real problems.
Sure.
And I think that's what's gotten us pretty far.
Now, beyond integrations, Flock Freight and a number of our transportation customers have operated in a market that has been a wild one. Chris tracks freight cycles very closely and publishes market research as well. We asked him what the data is telling him right now and what shippers and carriers should expect for the rest of 2026.
Yeah, the logistics market's been interesting. It's been a bit of a roller coaster over the last 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
I know you do a lot of market analysis. You've got like your own firm kind of publishing these reports, right? How are you seeing that impact you guys at Flock? How are you seeing, like, what are the trends in the market you're seeing right now, and where do you think we'll end up at the end of 26?
Yeah, I think in many ways, the more the market changes, the more it stays the same. And so I think an observation, that I and kind of my team developed. Before I was at Flock, I spent 15 years scaling up coyote logistics, and fast growth, non-asset-based truckload transportation.
Right.
And a lot of the story behind that growth was how quickly we were able to expand in the enterprise sector, which meant we had to figure out how to hold contract positions and do it well while still buying in the spot market. That's the way the market works. If you don't do a good job predicting, at least directionally, your cost basis, that gets really hard to do.
Yes.
And so through that research, trying to figure out how do we set longer term rate commitments with shippers, identify this recurring pattern, at least my perspective is, U.S. freight market tends to be a lot more consistent directionally than I think most people realize. Or there's this kind of 3 to 4 year cycle, and it can change in different ways where, when rates are high, new supply comes in because of this inherent fragmentation. Too much supply comes in because we're irrational, profit-seeking human beings. We always overdo it. Eventually, you put a cap in the market crashes to a point where enough of that surplus capacity has to exit, and then eventually you're going to start the cycle. So at the end of the day, it's a story of supply and demand, like many other comparable marketplaces. So what I think has been unique this time around, as you zoom out, is one, certainly the compounding impact of a global pandemic. You haven't seen that before in terms of at least how long I've been paying attention.
Impacted all of us.
Russian invasion of Ukraine, these things that have kind of gone on where you've had these wild demand spikes that have stunted the cycle, but in my opinion haven't changed the shape. And so you saw this massive surge in volume growth during the COVID years, which brought an awful lot of capacity. And then the last 3 years, the market's been going through that reckoning where you got to burn off, for lack of a better term, that surplus capacity, put a floor under rates, and create a scenario where now, once again, we're supply deficit. You were supply surplus the last 3 years, and so kind of what that looks on a chart is, I think from now through really the end of the year, you'll see, I think, a rate of spot truckload cost inflation the market hasn't seen since the COVID years. And so how that manifested itself on within Flock's business is ultimately we're in the business of allowing shippers to buy truckload service. Basically means same truck, same driver, no terminal consolidation, only pay for the space your shipment actually needs. Instead of, ordering full truckload and basically paying to ship air.
Right.
So in many ways, we're competing with the penalty cost of shipping air, which is basically analogous to what's happening with truckload spot rates.
Is this like a leading indicator that the economy is kind of rebounding as well?
I think it's part of it. I mean, there's again,
more
it's
demand,
supply and demand.
more demand of
it's all relative,
shipping,
right?
yeah.
So right now, I think demand's the big wild card for 2026. I think what's been moving the market most recently is the exit of supply.
Right.
And so a lot of that supply that came in, again, from my research, my perspective, during the go-go years, is now supply that's been now deemed, uncompliant or quasi-compliant. Either carriers that have questionable immigration status, or drivers that are holding, non-domiciled CDLs,
Right.
or drivers that can't pass, basic English proficiency, when queried by, a DOT inspector. And that's creating an environment where you're seeing an accelerated exit of supply on a relative basis. So even if demand's not improving, and again, depending on what you look at, it's hard to tell whether demand's improving or not,
Right.
just that rate of supply exit can create an environment where you're going to see rate increases. So I think what we're seeing now is more a function of supply exit, more so than demand increase. That said, I think looking out of the balance of the year, you're looking at things like industrial production, manufacturing surveys, things actually look pretty constructive. If we get a materially improved demand scenario, either because the housing market starts to unlock, or you've got material inventory restocking, compounded off of the supply flooding, that creates this, compounding set of factors where again it can drive inflation this market hasn't seen in a long, long time. And so I think how it probably manifests itself in your business is, when things are tepid in terms of, shippers don't have to work that hard to hit budget. You don't have to work that hard to maintain service levels.
Right.
And so you're not really adding new trading partners.
Right.
Really? So it's, hey, let me hang out with the partners that I've got. Which is the right thing to do in many cases.
Yeah.
And so I think as that sentiment changes, if things get more volatile, shippers are going to have a much harder time, maintaining a freight budget, maintaining service levels. They're going to have to, in many cases, start to entertain new providers, which is going to mean new integration partners. And I think the faster they can do that and access that capacity, I think, one, the better off they're going to do, and I think the more attention you guys will get with big plans.
I'm glad the market's rebounding a bit. I'm a tech guy, so I really just follow the NASDAQ.
Sure.
And that looks really scary right now. But it's good to hear that the rest of the market.
Yeah, I mean, there's still the specter of AI, and what is that going to do? But if it's at the end of the day, AI runs on data, and in a market like transportation, which is I guess what I'm closest to, that data is fragmented into a billion different silos, and so the aggregation of that data is going to depend on the fidelity of the pipes, right, that these networks have in place to exchange data. Many of which are going to be running over EDI, and many of which I suspect will be running through your platform.
Yeah, we've seen it. I mean, even with our logistics customers, we've been able to sell into the market because people are looking to save money and reduce time, reduce costs, right? So we've kind of had I don't know if this was a freight recession, right? I don't know if this is a true recession that we went through, but we had some pretty good growth through that. But I'm really excited about the rebound and the opportunity for other companies to.
Well, I think we're going to start to see, hopefully, I think that the value proposition, again, Flock included, is integration saves OpEx, right? So the less people I have manually entering orders or manually checking on trucks or manually sending information back and forth, then the fewer people I have on staff doing that full time, the lower my labor cost.
Yeah, and if you can solve a core problem for the business as well, it's just a win-win for a lot of companies that bought us with less.
But I think more companies, while that's always been true, I think the more forward-thinking firms are starting to look at this as more of a growth engine. Right, start playing some offense. Start adding a little more velocity.
Let's go. I want to play offense.
Yeah. So I mean, the faster you can get integrated with different trading partners, and if the effective cost of those integrations asymptotes, right, on its way to zero, then why wouldn't you have a much richer ecosystem of trading partners you can turn on and turn off as the competitive landscape changes and as you need them or not?
That's our strategy, is to reduce any friction with EDI. So the vision early days was turn it into an experience like flipping a switch.
Sure.
We were able to, my career, I started as an EDI developer. I was so blown away, building an integration to Walmart, for example. It would take me, call it 90 days, 120 days to go live. The status quo was crazy. I was building a flat file, seeing it over an FTP server. It made no sense. So as I was doing that, I realized there had to be a better way. And as we've been building Orderful, what I realized is, the lower we make the switching costs, the easier we win the market. So our whole vision is turn it into an experience of flipping a switch. So we've gone from 90 days to 9 days, and the vision now is 9 days to 9 hours, 9 hours, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 9 seconds. The 4 nines. Let's just go attack those. And, if people on the team aren't working on those problems, and probably not working on the right problems.
Yeah. And we've noticed it too. I mean, the growing years were fast, grow, scale. Yeah, I think the service experience with Flock with Orderful was, I wouldn't say choppy, but certainly challenging at times as we're trying to grow too. But there's been a marked change over the last 3 or 4 years as you guys have tightened things up. Things got more standardized, right? Those the time to integrate has been compressed.
Thanks for fighting through with us.
It wasn't easy.
No,
there were some conversations where it could have gone
I
different
remember
directions.
talking to your CEO, Warren. I got checked a few times, but it was awesome.
But now, I mean, our biggest time constraint, and that team that runs integrations reports up through my organization, is really the latency of how long it takes to get shipper information. And that's a function of them prioritizing the Flock integration in terms of all their stuff, getting the right test files to validate back and forth. And I think the easier it gets and the cheaper it gets, for those trading partners, again, compressing that time to integrate to hours certainly seems like within reach.
Now, with supply tightening and shippers preparing to move fast on new trading partners, the conversation naturally did turn to how modern technology can solve how fast EDI integrations can move. Erik has been building AI into Orderful's core from day one, so the two of them did dive into what's real, what's hype, and where we're actually seeing ROI show up for our customers.
As the world's changing so fast, we got AI. Everybody's talking about AI. It's huge. If you're not using it, you're probably going to die.
Sure.
So what are you guys doing with AI at Flock? What's the innovation happening?
Yeah, I mean, Flock has been inherently driven and enabled by AI. If you think of kind of what Flock does,
AI brokerage,
it's a massive optimization problem we're solving in real time, really every 30 seconds.
Yes.
And so, we've got a bunch of shipments that could pull together, and it's all runs on permutation math. So if there's, say, 3,000 shipments that could be combined that are picking up this week, there's 120 trillion permutations by which that freight could be combined, the vast majority of which are infeasible. So building tech and compute to build and fuel the optimization models that are basically just a cascade series of predictions how long is this shipment likely to dwell at a given facility for
That's
pickup?
really cool.
How long is it likely to take this, route to go from pickup to delivery? How likely is it that this shipment really is 4 pallets based on this customer's track record? And the better we get at making those predictions, we're all AI driven, the better the model functions, the more effective we're pooling, the lower our cost basis, the better performance levels.
Are you guys helping customers with their own shipments, or are you aggregating across all of your customers?
Yeah, so it's aggregating across all of our customers. And in some cases, we are helping drive multi-stops kind of within specific networks. So I think the core of what Flock does and what enables us to do what we do is inherently a machine learning, AI-driven solution. As AI has evolved and the rise of the large language models, all the things that, that
Sure,
tech
that's
can now
helped you guys
do,
out a lot.
then we're looking across the entire stack of, we still need to respond to quote requests. We still need to build orders. We still need to schedule appointments and sometimes reschedule appointments. We still need to match freight to carriers. We still need to get PODs and match them to invoices.
Right.
And what we're seeing is, as the tech evolves, it's this massive, tool to compress time. And we model our business very much like a metaphorical factory,
Right.
where a shipment comes in and we're adding value to every step of the way, and eventually you end up with a delivered invoice, paid freight bill. Anywhere you can compress the duration of any of those steps, the faster the factory runs, the faster we drive throughput, the more freight we get to handle. The more freight we get to handle, the better pooling works. Everything gets better at scale.
And how have the new kind of large language models helped you guys out? You guys were early in this game. I'm sure you've seen a ton of progression with, all the
It's tough, and so it's some of these use cases are just fascinating, and it kind of blows your mind. Even just kind of the consumer applications, we see a lot of the same, in our business. And so, across the board, it's, do we make or buy, right? Can we leverage Gemini to scrape quote requests and do it ourselves? Or
we're doing a lot of
serve
this stuff
leveraging
too,
a partner?
yeah.
And if you do, which partner should you choose? There's been this explosion of capital into the space, as you might imagine. And there's, dozens of providers that are attacking, even just within transportation. I'm sure it's across a bunch of other vertical businesses. So I think the challenge now is, nobody wants to be left behind.
Right.
And so there's almost a mandate to pilot and do stuff. And it's how do you decide what to do? And I think right now, across the board, I think there's an overwhelming sense of pilot fatigue. And it's okay, where do we see the greatest signal in terms of moving forward? Where do we see the greatest, I think, potential for ROI? Like right now, as far as I can tell, the ROI isn't quite there. We've got great signal, great promise, it's gonna be fantastic, but I haven't seen any organization that's gone all in or invested more heavily with AI tools for operational improvements suddenly pulling away from the market. And so I think we're still early innings.
Very early innings. Yeah. Last year, we kind of reinvented ourselves with AI. We built a new product called Mosaic.
Yeah.
And it was only possible because we had, 7 years of operating prior and all this EDI information, all this data, right, that we could actually use AI to make something effective. But we're really excited about it. It's a crazy time we're living in.
And I think you juxtapose that with where we are in the freight cycle. I talked about that kind of capacity coming in, capacity coming out. When you have an environment where the load is the scarce resource, like we had during the freight means there's less freight versus the supply that's out there to service it. There's carriers that are out there are much more, willing to go onto different portals and use digital tools and try to serve themselves as the market turns. And so that's when you get, can I build AI to field inbound phone calls?
Right.
Makes sense. When the market turns, all of a sudden the truck is the scarce resource.
Right.
These carriers are getting inundated by AI agents now that all the brokers are subscribing for. They're not on the load boards in the same way. So when that phone stops ringing, okay, now what do you do?
Right.
And so I think it's trying to figure out, relative to where the market opportunity is, what's the right application of these tools, and how do you continue to move the rate of innovation forward?
Yeah. Definitely exciting time. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to be in freight. It's a great time to be in tech. It's a great time to be in integration. So
It's the best. Every 5 years something else comes up, right? Like we had blockchain. Now we have AI. We can actually use AI.
Yeah.
The blockchain was maybe more of a bust than anything valuable, but I'm really excited about what we're doing and what you guys are doing with AI as well.
Yeah, we're excited about the partnership, and I think for the folks that have managed a way to, at least on the service side, stay alive and kind of grind their way through a pretty brutal market the last 3 years. I think there's a massive kind of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and there's a massive amount of innovation out there, and it's an awful lot of people are having an awful lot of fun now. So it's nice to say that.
Let's go have some fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Hey man, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
It was awesome.
Fun.
And of course, these two wrapped where a lot of freight conversations end up. Somewhere between cautious optimism and genuine excitement for what's coming next. And Chris did say it best. To the companies that grinded through the tough years in freight, well, they're now sitting on the front of massive innovation. At Orderful, we know exactly what that's like, and we've been building towards that for years with faster integrations, with less friction, and making that overall process go from 90 days down to hours. Now, if you want to see what that looks like for your business, we'd love to help. Reach out to us at the link below to link up with one of our EDI experts. But of course, continue to check out these conversations. We've got hours of footage from Manifest that we'll be sharing over the next 2 months with customers and analysts alike. So stay tuned for what's next. And remember, here at the Integration Hub, stay connected. No autism here. Okay.